We acknowledge that we were founded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaronk, the Mississauga and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and now live on land that is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We have many representatives working across this land now known as Ontario, and we acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory. We are grateful to be able to work and live on this land, and thankful to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial, and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario and to all communities across the province. To continue to center reconciliation, we encourage our team, partners, students, and teachers to take time to learn about the lands they are currently on. Visit native-land.ca for more information.
Hello, everyone. I also just want to add to that and acknowledge that this particular field trip is actually on the Wasauksing First Nation. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Local Food Week. To celebrate, we are going to take a tour of the Aqua-Cage Fisheries in Parry Sound. So we're going to be able to learn all about rainbow trout and how they grow there. My name is Madison, and I'm the events assistant at Eggscape, and my host today is Kana, who is a biologist and manager of Aqua-Cage Fisheries, and our cameraman today is RJ, who's actually done some other field trips at the Cedar Crest Fishery. So we're just troubleshooting some sound issues, but we're going to check in and see if we're good to go. And if not, I'll have a nice question ready for you and your class to think about. All right, looks like they need a little bit more time. So in the meantime, please put these answers in the chat. What types of tasks do you think they have to do at the fishery? What do you think they have to do on an everyday basis in order to raise their fish? So please put your answers in the chat. Awesome. Feed the fish. Feed them. They have to do some cleaning. Feeding them. That's definitely a big task. More cleaning. More feeding. Awesome. Great answers, everyone. Breeding. Great answer. Okay. So let's now check in with Kana and see if we're ready to go. Hello, Kana.
Hi, Madison.
Are you able to hear me?
Are we coming through okay now?
You're coming through okay. I can hear you.
We switched to this headset. Okay.
Okay.
We were having some issues with our earbuds, but I think we're good now.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay,
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kana Upton. I work as the manager and biologist at Aqua-Cage Fisheries. We are a rainbow trout farm located in Parry Sound. If any of you have ever been to Killbear Park, we're just right across the way from them. Actually, you can see them kind of on this picture. Killbear would just be over in this direction. So I started at Aqua-Cage 13 years ago. I'm actually born and raised in Parry Sound. I never knew that there was a fish farm here. I went away to the University of Guelph and took marine and freshwater biology. It wasn't until my 4th year that I was in a fish and crustacean nutrition class, and the professor said, we're going to have a fish farmer from Parry Sound come down and talk to us. And I thought, I got to know who this person is. Parry Sound's not a big place. It ended up I took a canoe lesson with this guy when I was 9 years old, and I started volunteering for a day. Then it became part-time and full-time 2 weeks later, and then I became the manager about 2 or 3 months in, and I've been here ever since. when I say I drove by the farm my whole life, I literally had a cottage over on this island over here, and I would boat from the Parry Sound area right over to this, and you cannot see the farm. The cages, which in the summertime are in this deeper water area, they blend right into the shoreline. And if you're less than a kilometer away, you can't even see the farm. Aqua-Cage is the largest rainbow trout farm individually in Ontario. So it's pretty amazing that it just disappears and you can't even see it when you're that far away. Aqua-Cage, I'm also wearing my 40th anniversary shirt. Last year we celebrated 40 years, and to the best of our knowledge, we're the longest continually operating trout farm in a cage system in North America. So this is the office that you're in now. This is where I enter a lot of our data for feeding rates, conversion rates, which I can get into. That's how much feed you put in and how much fish weight you get in. So rainbow trout, you can get like a 1 to 1.2, which means if you put 1 pound of feed in, you can get 1 pound of growth out of on the other end, which is pretty amazing. So we keep track of all of our feeding information in here. We're going to see some feeding today, so you'll actually get to see how this operation works. We keep track of all of our water sampling that happens, and our sediment work. So we do water sampling every year. Sediment sampling is about every 5 years, and we're just ensuring that we don't have any negative impacts on the water body. And we're going to go outside and we're going to see some feed. We're going to see some fish feeding. There's a dissection video. So we've got a lot to show you in a small amount of time. And if you guys have any questions, just fire them away. We'll answer as we go. So now we can go outside. If you follow me, we're going to see a bag of feed. We've got some areas of our farm that don't pick up well for reception, which happens to be our feed barn. So I asked one of our guys to bring out 1 bag of feed. Right now in our barn, we have about 150 of these bags, and that will get us through enough feed for a few days. So this is 1 ton of feed, or 2,200 pounds. This is, it's a 6mm pellet, which would go to like an intermediate size fish. Here's some of the pellets. So their diet is well researched. The company that we buy from has spent over $100 million on research to perfect what's in this pellet. There's a lot of animal proteins and different fats. And if you notice, because we're growing rainbow trout, they're like salmon. They have a red flesh color to it. We add a pigment to get that. It's extremely healthy. It's one of the best antioxidants and anti-inflammatories that you can buy. So don't let anybody tell you that it's a dye. It is not. I take it as myself as a health supplement. It's a little fishy tasting. I have tried them. I don't recommend eating them. But we can always tell if there's a little bit of an off flavor. That's something that we could test for. But our fish love it. It's extremely high energy. It's extremely expensive, and it's got little waste. So very little carbs going on. Which means that you don't have a lot of fish poop generated. A long time ago, when fish farms were starting, it was like most diets, you know, just get the bulk into the fish. And that meant you had a lot of fish poop going on. And that's not good for the environment. It's not good for the fish. So they ended up moving to a diet that was high in proteins and high in fats, which allows the fish to grow better, quicker, more efficiently. And then we also get less waste. Now, something about the fish poop that's kind of interesting, it falls directly beneath the cages. And it's not like saltwater where it could, you know, move around a lot. In freshwater, it sinks directly below. Now, on its way down, our cages that are actually out behind me here, they're in 200 to 400 feet of water. Our nets are 80 feet deep. And during that journey on the way down to the bottom, the fish poop might be eaten by minnows or smaller fish. And then if it makes it to the bottom, it would be consumed by invertebrates. And that's like worms, crayfish, that sort of stuff. And then those fish get consumed by other wild fish, and they get amplified through the food chain. So fish farms actually have quite a benefit to the environment, where you get so many more wild fish around a fish farm because there's just more life around a fish farm. So it's a pretty neat exchange between the fish farm and the wildlife, where we're actually doing a benefit. Some of our guys are avid fishermen. They just caught 2 pike today, for instance, around our farm. We actually have, the MNR has rules to keep fishermen from getting too close to our nets, because all the other fish like to be around us as well. There's actually a funny story about one of the farms up north. They had so many wild fish underneath their cages that when they started schooling, they drove his cages to the surface and crowded the fish in the net, which I thought was kind of funny. So this is 1 ton of feed. We'll get back to the feed. When we're really feeding aggressively, we will go through 21 of these bags in 1 day. So we go through quite a lot of feed, but it's only in the summertime. The fish are cold-blooded. They don't like to eat a lot in the winter. So we're basically feeding for maintenance. So we might go through 1 of these tons in a day, sort of thing. Sure. We feed by hand in winter. So if RJ can pan to our dock area, you can see we've got some colorful barges. And these are what we use to feed in the summertime, because the volume of feed is so great, we don't feed everything by hand. And it was very rough today, and we didn't think we'd be able to go out to the bay, but we think we can now. It might be a little bit of a bumpy trip, but I hope that we can get out to the bay and you can actually see a barge feeding some fish. But these colorful boats, we've got a green, a red, and a blue one. They're barges that have bins on a load scale, so we can weigh the exact amount of feed that's in it. And then there's a computer system in each barge. So they pull up to a 4-pack of cages. They're in squares, and there's 4 cages in a pod, and they can feed 2 at once. And each boat has 2 bins and 2 separate blowers, and they program the amount of feed that they're supposed to get. They eat in the morning and in the afternoon, so twice a day. And we've got some of our crew coming up here now, out busy working, pulling up cages, getting ready for new baby fingerlings. We also get all of our new fish in the springtime, so it's a busy time of year for us. And so they go out on these barges, they enter the amount of feed that they're going to get, let's say 300 kilograms. They flip a switch and the blowers shoot the feed out to the fish. And then the computers will shut them off at 300 kilograms. Now, if they're feeding more aggressive, then they can give them a little bit more. If they're not eating that much, they don't like it that day, then we can shut them off and stop them at 250 kilograms. So it's a lot of flexibility, but it saves a lot of arms from throwing a lot of feed. So we can try to go out to the cages. I don't know if Madison would like to play a video while we cruise out there and we can see fish getting dissected.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We actually have a question that might lead us into the dissection as well.
Okay.
It is, how do you know if a fish is sick and what do you do?
That's a good question. So fish don't have a lot of different features that they can exhibit when they have an illness. So there's not a lot of things that they can do. They can swim differently. They can, there's something we call, they look lethargic, which means they're just slowly kind of cruising around in the water. They can do spirally things. So they can do different swimming behaviors, or they'll have something physically wrong with their features. And if there's nothing physically wrong with their features, then we cut them open and you're going to see a dissection video to check their organs. We check their livers, make sure they're not spotted, their kidneys, things like that. We want to make sure that they've got enough fat, not too much fat. We can adjust fat levels in our feed. So we basically want to make sure that we're growing the fish to the best of our ability. If a cage is not doing very well, we can medicate them and give them antibiotics, but that is an absolute last resort. That just comes down to a health and welfare call at that point. And if we do have to do that, it's when the fish are really tiny, and you don't get the fish in the market until they're quite large. So a clearance day would be about 80 days for medication to leave a system, and we're not shipping fish for about 700 days. So we don't medicate, but if our vet indicates we have to and we have some illness, we might. But most cases we can help solve problems by just better management and better handling of the fish, which is what is better for all of us. So yeah, you will see a video of dissecting a fish. If anybody's squeamish, look away, but if you can watch it, it's pretty cool. You're going to see a heartbeat and a lens, so it's pretty neat to tune into.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Kana. So yes, we are going to do a fish dissection. We have an awesome video that they took, and it's to see the organs of the fish so that they can see if they're nice and healthy. So they do have a vet that does this. They cut them open and they just make sure everything's working nice and well. So I'll show that video while Kana actually hops on a boat and takes us somewhere else.
So we've cut open our fish, and on the inside here we can see all the organs. All this fatty tissue is surrounding the intestines, and when you probe around you can feel harder bits in here, and that's their stomach. I can actually feel the pellets inside, and if I cut that open you'll actually see the pellets that this one just ate. So we can quickly just pierce into that stomach, and then there's a pellet it just ate. Here you can see this is the gas bladder or the air sac, and it's like a balloon. I can pull that away from the body here. That helps the fish regulate itself in the water column, and almost looks like a jellyfish. This black bit at the back of their spine is actually their kidney. They don't have two kidneys on either side of their body like we would as humans. And then here, I've kind of already gone into it. I've broken the membrane to get into the pericardial area here, and I'm gonna cut the heart out, so sorry if there's blood. I wanna show you guys something pretty neat. You can see the heart continues to beat, and this is because of the SA node that has electric capacity still in it, so it's independent of the rest of the body, so it keeps a charge and will actually continue to beat as long as there is a charge. As long as there's blood still flowing through it, or enough blood there, it will continue to beat. So it looks like it might have just stopped now. So there's some blood from that because we broke through the arteries to get to the heart. Here's the liver. That's a nice healthy looking liver. It's not marbled, there's not white blotches on it, there's not spots. So you can see there's the stomach again, that's full, right into the intestines. This would be its vent, and you can see we've cut into it a little bit there. So this is where it would expel its feces, and also there would be an egg sac. This is a female fish. All of our fish at the farm are female, and you know what, their egg sacs are not developed at all, but they run in a line that goes all the way back, here they are, to the vent as well. So if it had eggs, it would come out of the same spot. The other things that we've missed are hiding here. There's our spleen, that black bit, and there's a gallbladder in here hiding on us. Where is it? I don't think we punctured it, but it's a little sac filled with some yellowy green fluid. You know what, maybe we might have punctured it, or it expelled a lot of it into its fluid, because there's part of it there. I don't know if you can see between my thumb, there's part of the fluid, so it might have been using it to digest already. Beyond that, we'll look at their gill health. So this one was just sitting in a pail, that's why it's got some mucky stuff in its gills, but other than that, the gills look good. The eye is kind of neat because there's a lens inside the eyeball. If anybody's squeamish, you might want to look away, but I'm going to show you guys because it's kind of a neat thing. So I'm going to cut into the eye. You get a good grip on it here. And I'm going to try not to poke it out. But there is a little ball in here. There it is. It just popped out. And it's like a little orb. I don't know if that's showing up well on camera. It's actually kind of jelly-like, but like a hard jelly. But that would be the lens that helps the fish focus and see underwater. Looks like a little orby, if anybody knows what those are. And then, oh, we've still got our gas bladder intact. We could go through the fins. So we've got our dorsal fin here. It's a rayed fin. All the fins are rayed on a trout except this little nub here, which is called the adipose fin. This is the funniest name on the fish, in my opinion. It's called the caudal peduncle. And this would be called a caudal fin or a tail fin. There's its pelvic fin. And then here's pectoral fins. And again, these are all rayed. You can feel the rays. They're not spiny rayed, so they don't hurt or anything. But that covers all the fins on the trout. And now you've learned the majority of the organs on a trout. Thank you.
All right. I hope you all enjoyed that video that showed the anatomy of the fish. Here you can see Kana is actually driving over to one of the pens to show you. And yeah, we do have some questions. I don't know, Kana, if you're able to answer just yet. If not, I'll show you are able to? Oh, perfect. All right. So one question that came from when we watched that video is, why don't you have male fish?
That's a good question. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. It is windy out here. We do not have male fish because males mature faster than female fish. And female fish, well, basically do not want to send fish to the market if they have matured. I'm just going to grab a rope here really quick. Just 1 second. Just going to tie it off. Okay, so we don't want fish to mature before they go to market because they're diverting a lot of the energy that we fed them to have all that nice meat to go to market. They end up pulling fat and actually the pigment that gives them the red color. It goes to egg production, or if it's a male, it'll go to milk production. And then the product is just downgraded. It's not that nice because the animal's pulling resources from their tissues into the egg or the milk production. So we don't want that to happen. And we got to grow them as fast as we can before they mature. So males will mature sooner than females, which is why we go to a female. It could be up to a year faster. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room to grow fish as big as we can before we have to harvest them. And they'll go to a processing plant when they leave the farm, and then they get processed and go to the grocery stores. So you can buy fish from our farm at like Sobeys or Walmart or Costco. You can see we're banging around here. It's quite rough. So we're going to get out of the boat too and go to the cage, but you can still fire questions away. I'm just going to tie up the back.
All right. Second question is, how do you decide whether the fish is going to be sold to be eaten or kept to lay eggs?
Well, RJ, actually, he can't hear us, but he's filming. He has a hatchery that there's another video you could watch if you're interested, but they have brood stock and they would pick growers that are more ideal for reproduction. For us, everything goes to the market. We're not saving any fish. But another farm like Arlen and RJ's farm, they would keep fish to become egg sources later on.
Awesome.
So this is one of our cages. Is there another question?
We do have one more if you want.
Sure.
Okay, just why do you like working with fish? This question is from Ella. Oh,
that's a good question. I have always loved being in the water. Actually, I'm just going to turn this way just because the wind is going to get in the microphone. when I was 6 or 7, I went to Hawaii with my family, and I remember putting on a snorkel and a mask and looking underwater for the first time. And I was screaming or like in excitement in the snorkel, and my mom thought I was having a problem. But it was just really, I was like, it is amazing to see under the water. So I think that sparked my interest in everything under the surface. And then that led me to go into marine biology, and just meeting my professor and hearing about this fish farm right where I grow up. It just kind of all worked out. I love fish just because, I mean, it's different when you're in the water with them. I have swam in these cages. It's kind of cool. I've swam in them while they're eating. You can see how aggressive they're eating over there. I don't know what it is about the water, but I love being in it, and I love the fish in it. I love the coral. I love everything about it. Seaweed. It's just something that I've always loved. So here we are. We are at a cage. So this is a 4-pack of cages. Matt's over there in the boat feeding them. So his boat will be feeding about 9 tons. So 9 of those bags that I was standing beside earlier. He's feeding our largest fish right now, which are about 2 pounds. For size comparison, it would be just over a foot long, something like this maybe. And we're going to get hopefully another half a pound to a pound on them for size. So we want them to be about 3 pounds. And we'll start shipping them this summer, and then we'll continue to harvest all winter long. We use a big net that goes inside these nets, and we select a group of the fish. So it's just random, but we'll pull them to a pump, and that's how we harvest a cage, because we're not harvesting an entire cage at once. In this cage alone, we have about 50,000 fish. And you can see I'm surrounded by cages, and each one of them has about 50,000 fish in each one. At the farm at any given time, we can have 2 million fish. It depends on the time of year, because I mentioned we are getting fingerlings now. So we're stocking fish and building up our numbers because we ship them out all winter long. So I mentioned we do water quality testing and we do sediment sampling. They've been doing water testing since this farm started in 1982. There's never been any measurable difference between the farm site and background. There's been no impacts. Sediment sampling is the same. You'd never see any difference. Like, you will have more inverts and stuff underneath the cages, so you will see some differences that way. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a positive impact to have. So you can see he's feeding the fish now. He blows them out of the tubes. The seagulls are trying to capture pellets right now out of the air. But you can see the aggressive splashing. So the fish, rainbow trout, will actually come up. They're like little piranhas, and they come up to the surface and grab the pellets. So I don't know if you can see that very clearly or not. Okay. So RJ's going to go closer with the camera, and I'm going to stay away because that boat is loud and the seagulls are loud. So hopefully you can see that a little bit better now.
Kana, we have a question
Yes.
from Kimberly about the birds. Do you lose a lot of fish to the birds?
That's another good question. So RJ can't hear me, but if you look at the cages when he's over top of them, there's actually a top net. Oh, now he's showing Matt. There's Matt waving. There's a top net on all of these cages. So he's filming. You can see it now. I'm holding on to it. This keeps the birds from getting at our fish. It also keeps other predators out, but birds are the #1 concern. We actually have a lot of bald eagles that will come around the farm, and other diving birds like osprey and loons. Seagulls are the #1 concern because they like to try to get the pellets. But the only thing that could really get at a big fish is an eagle, because they're strong enough to get it out of the cage. So these nets help protect them from birds trying to steal them. So you can see they're quite strong. And they'll also keep out certain mammals too. If you have minks or otters, it'll help keep stuff like that out of your cages. That's a good question.
That's awesome.
I hope you guys can see them. it's a nice sunny day, so there's 50,000 fish swimming around in there.
Is there any way, Kana, you want to talk about the little robot that you kind of use to see the fish even closer underwater?
Yes. So thank you, Madison. There's an ROV, which stands for remotely operated vehicle, that we put into the cages, and we have a video ready for you. So you can see, we use this machine to check for holes in our netting. So we check this netting and make sure there's no holes in it. And we use it to check the bottoms if there's any fish that may have died and sunk to the bottom. And we can use it to check anchor lines to make sure everything's secure with the farm. And we can watch fish feeding and make sure that the pellets don't end up getting through the big ball of fish. So if you want to watch that video, you can see some fish underneath the surface.
Awesome. So we actually have a lot of questions, Kana, if you want to answer some of them, because we only actually have a couple of minutes left. Time has flown by.
Sure.
Okay,
questions are great.
Awesome. So Morgan has a question. Speaking about your love for water, how long can you hold your breath underwater?
Free diving is one of my passions, which means that you're holding your breath and you're diving down without scuba equipment on. I am certified to be a scuba diver, but we do all of our stuff with the ROV. But I can hold my breath for 3.5 minutes when I practice, and that's different than when you're actually swimming down. When I'm swimming down, you're using a lot of energy and your muscles are consuming the oxygen. So you burn through it really quick, and I'll only stay under the water swimming down deep for about a minute to a minute and 10 seconds probably at the most. But I only do that when I'm on vacation in Hawaii, where it's very clear. When you swim straight down in Georgian Bay, I mean, in waters where we are, it's just dark and it's cold and there's not a lot to see. But our nets are 80 feet deep here, so I wouldn't be swimming to the bottom of the nets here.
Right. That makes sense. That's pretty good, though. All right. We have another question. When you start a fish farm, do you buy the eggs? Where do you get the eggs?
Well, RJ, who's holding the camera, is a producer. There he is. So RJ and his sister Arlen own a hatchery, and they have their own broodstock, which are fish that have their own eggs, and they will produce their fish from the broodstock. Other hatcheries will buy their eggs from large suppliers of eggs. There are a few companies, and actually, one of the questions that we get a lot with fish farms are, what happens if a fish escapes? Is it going to affect the wild population? Rainbow trout were not actually in the Great Lakes until about the 1890s, I believe, somewhere around that time. And they were introduced by the government for a game fish, for fishing. So they're naturalized. So there's no wild rainbow trout in our area to begin with. And they have actually stocked fish from the same places that we have bought eggs from. So there's no genetic concerns with any fish escaping and interacting with fish that are already in the Great Lakes. So the hatcheries that we buy from buy their eggs from another company, or they produce their own, and then they get transported to us on a big transport truck. They look different. RJ and Arlen have these beautiful trucks that have these painted tanks on them. You see them cruising up and down the highway. And some of them look like milk trucks too at different hatcheries. And while they're transported to us, the driver's stopping regularly. They're watching their oxygen and their temperature and making sure that the fish are okay. And then they get to our farm, and we actually count every single fish that goes into the cages. And 50,000 is a lot of heads to count and keep track of. So we do our best, and they get put into a cage, and they stay in the same cage at our site the whole time. So they'll be at our farm for about 2 years in a cage.
Awesome. And actually, we only have time for one more question. So
Okay.
This is going to be our last question, then we'll have to say goodbye. But what's your favorite thing about your job?
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite thing has always been that every day is different. Like, for example, today I'm giving a tour to all of you. We give lots of school tours, which is always fun. I hope you guys really enjoyed the dissection. That's always been my favorite part, is cutting open the fish and seeing what's on the inside, seeing how things work, seeing how they look. One day I'll be out here helping the guys with shipping. Another day I'll be in the office doing some data work and some work on statistics. And then other days you're working on more business related stuff and making sure, you're not running out of feed. And so every day has been different for me, and I really love that. Some days you're just out, you're watching fish feed, and that's also super enjoyable. So I think I like the variation. The day-to-day is different, and I'm outdoors. So, you're around nature, you're in a beautiful area, and you're on the water. I think that's pretty much wraps up why I love the job.
That's awesome. And it does look really beautiful where you are there.
It's a nice day today.
It's awesome. Well, Kana, thanks so much for showing us around your farm and teaching us all about locally sourced rainbow trout during Local Food Week here in Ontario. I hope everyone watching learned so much. Thank you all for your comments. I'm sorry if I didn't show them. We just had so many. Everyone is so interested in what were you showing. Kana, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have had some questions answered. And if you have more, you can always reach out to us and our association, the Ontario Aquaculture Association. We're happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.